With each new edition of Call of Duty Black Ops, new iterations and innovative changes were added to the Zombies game mode. Now 3 games in, zombies had become the most established and recognizable element, setting the Black Ops series apart from the rest of Call of Duty. With Black Ops 2 having revolutionized and elevated the mode, ending with a send-off so infallible as Origins, players speculated what magical undead wonders might await them in the next game. After Origins was released on Black Ops 2 in August 2013, the next Black Ops Zombies chapter wouldn't come out for another 2 years. Call of Duty Ghosts saw the Extinction mode for the remainder of 2013, while Sledgehammer followed with Advanced Warfare and Exo-Zombies in 2014. Finally, 2015 allowed the classic Black Ops Zombies to rise from the grave once more, promising another era of teddy bears, ray guns, and perk jingles. Black Ops 3 existed in the infamous age of futuristic Call of Duty games, set in the year 2065, 40 years after the setting of Black Ops 2, and featuring critically detested distant future technologies, such as exosuits. Of course, Black Ops 3 consisted of its own original soundtrack for its multiplayer mode, single-player mode, and its zombie mode. The Zombies menu featured another remix of Black Ops 1's Damned. This time the track was more exciting than dismal, delivering a sense of triumph. As for sound effects and sound design, Black Ops 3's weapons sounded more futuristic and refined, with the powerful, decimating sound of shotguns and sniper rifles ranging through to quieter assault rifles and submachine guns. Before its release on November 5th, 2015, Treyarch released a hot new trailer for Black Ops 3 Zombies' debut map, Shadows of Evil. The trailer promised a dedication to zombies grander than it had ever seen before, hinting at exciting new features, crazy mechanics, and an exquisite sense of theme and style, with the map being set in the suave noir streets of 1940s America. Of course, with the precedent founded from Black Ops 2, zombies couldn't just be zombies anymore. The map would have a twist, and the trailer conveyed that Shadows of Evil would have an extravagant one indeed. But between the advanced new mechanics and inundated presence of tentacle aliens, the new Zombies mode appeared perhaps a little too intimidating for casual players. Black Ops 2 had eventually expanded into gameplay that was more complex, but it had also provided smaller, simpler maps that a casual audience could still enjoy. While Black Ops 3's new version of Zombies would certainly suffer the loss of its casual player base, Shadows of Evil's distinctly complex gameplay would attract a different crowd. A cult following, a hardcore fanbase that would grow to assert itself throughout the lifetime of Black Ops 3. Zombies wasn't simple anymore. It had far outgrown its primitive ancestors. Change is inevitable, and evolution unstoppable. In November 2015, Black Ops 3 went live worldwide, and Shadows of Evil with it. Black Ops 3 provided a plentiful variety of new mechanics that further revolutionized the Zombies experience, all of which premiered in Shadows of Evil. Each version of Black Ops Zombies presented its own new modifications to the Zombies core. Black Ops 1 readjusted Quick Revive to embrace the game mode's growing solo audience. Black Ops 2 innovated with crafting, bringing a whole new element to the game, and Black Ops 3 brought a veritable list of its own core changes. The most notorious addition that Black Ops 3 gifted to the Zombies template were the Gobblegums, a mechanic that allowed players to acquire extra abilities and buffs. This mechanic sparked a prevalent controversy for the game, as these buffs varied from useless to game-breaking, especially with certain new ones introduced with DLC. Furthermore, the Gobblegums could be accessed through microtransactions, raising a pay-to-win controversy in a player versus environment game mode. But despite its controversies, Gobblegums provided a new avenue through which to explore, experiment with, and enjoy the zombies experience. Further iterating on the core Call of Duty Zombies template, Black Ops 3 added the specialist weapons, which acted as additional wonder weapons accessible to all players once unlocked. The Pack-a-Punch can now equip regular weapons with wonder weapon level capabilities, breathing new life into the game's basic firearms and giving players a reason to use these weapons at higher rounds. Black Ops 3 also increased the player's base health, meaning they would go down in 3 hits from a zombie instead of just 2, as it had always been before. These 4 massive changes to the basic gameplay loop of Call of Duty Zombies shared the fact that they made the game mode undeniably easier. Regardless of how this fact may have divided opinions over which edition of Zombies is superior, it is interesting what it suggests about the game's evolutionary direction. The many changes, small and large, introduced with each game suggest that the mode has evolved to become easier with each release, perhaps to compensate for the mechanics becoming more complicated. Finally, Black Ops 3 introduced sliding, replacing the old prone dive mechanic and subsequently dooming the renownedly beloved perk machine PhD flopper. Complementing these new and innovative changes to the Zombies template were the mechanics endemic to Shadows of Evil itself. Incorporating clear inspiration from the afterlife mechanic from Black Ops 2's highly influential Mob of the Dead, Shadows of Evil introduced the Beast mode, which allowed players to transform and then interact with different parts of the map. Accompanying the Beast mode mechanic were the Rituals, wherein 4 needed to be completed before the 5th and final one could be accessed to unlock the Pack-a-Punch. This mechanic's striking resemblance to the Generators mechanic from Origins speaks again to Black Ops 2's influence over the rest of the series, owed to its groundbreaking level of innovation. Shadows of Evil also featured the Civil Protector, a friendly AI that could be called down to help, with a visual composition reminiscent of Origins' giant robots. The map's final signature mechanic involved the Pods, a side mechanic mimicking the dig sites from Origins in function and in use. Wall riding saw its first appearance in Zombies in Shadows of Evil. While this novel mechanic was solely iconic to Black Ops 3 Zombies, it was not exclusive to Shadows of Evil, reappearing in 2 other maps down the Black Ops 3 line. Regarding regular iterations, Shadows of Evil boasted an incredibly well-themed assembly of the classic Black Ops Zombies mechanics. A terrifying trio of bosses exhibiting strange new forms and having unique vulnerabilities. The map's wonder weapon, the Apothicon Servant, could be crafted and used by one player, harboring immense power unrivaled by anything before it, or perhaps anything after it. The map featured 2 transport methods, the ever-familiar portals and a cable train, which had as much a leisurely use as it did a practical use. Finally, Shadows of Evil presented the game's latest perk machine, Widow's Wine, raising the grand total of perks to 13. Having already achieved a cavalcade of fantastic level designs and layouts, it had become less reasonable to expect an innovative new kind of level design from Black Ops 3. Still, the level design in Shadows of Evil is worth mentioning for being both unconventional and confluent. After the initial first door, the map branched off into 3 identical paths rather than just 2, with an objective to be completed at the end of each one. These branches exhibited portals that led to a central nexus underground, weaving the map together and giving players easier access to each respective location. Unfortunately, Shadows of Evil was the first and last map on Black Ops 3 to feature an abnormal level design, with every subsequent DLC map adopting the same more commonly used 2-split path layout. With Shadows of Evil as its premiere launch, Black Ops 3 presented an even higher standard for immersion, ambience, and style. Every curve and corridor in Shadows of Evil was phenomenally well decorated, with each crevice and barricade featuring an unprecedented, seemingly unnecessary level of detail, as opposed to a simple dark hallway. Though the entire map adhered to a very clear overall style, each individual area told a beautifully unique visual story. Every conceivable area provided its own distinct theme, yet they all maintained an unmistakable Shadows of Evil vibe, drawn together in a masterful display of stylistic cohesion. Between realistic in-theme sound effects and the perfectly orchestrated soundtrack, Shadows of Evil exhibited an exemplary audio direction and design, creating one of the most immersive zombies experiences ever made. Pieces of the smooth, jazzy soundtrack were played at key moments and areas to set a mood that perfectly suited the environment, matching Buried in its record-holding ambience. The background sound effects subtly emulated the slick, echoey alleyways and bustling streets of 20th century America, further bolstering the map's immersion and particular vibe. Combining magnificent sound design with splendid visuals, Shadows of Evil set a new expectation for ambience and style. Shadows of Evil showcased a surge in quality in all aspects of the game. Intriguing and exciting new mechanics to play with in an excellently designed and detailed map, served with a distinctly iconic visual and audible style. Call of Duty Zombies wasn't a simple side mode anymore, it had evolved into something glorious, its own distinctly unique experience. Equipped with the blueprints for the perfect specimen, namely Origins, Black Ops 3 is often celebrated for showcasing the best that the mode can possibly offer, the golden age for Call of Duty Zombies. Naturally, as previously established, the success and longevity of a Black Ops Zombies game's DLC series relies heavily on the first impression it delivers, its first DLC. An epic and impactful first experience will create further anticipation for the game's continuing releases, whereas a weaker experience may lead to uncertainty. From the success of Black Ops 3's first DLC map, it was clear that the series was starting off strong, perhaps the strongest so far. On February 2nd, 2016, 3 months after the initial publish of the game, Black Ops 3 released to Eisendrache. Much like Shadows of Evil before it, Der Eisendrache boasted the next level of audio quality and visual splendor. The frosted snow layer covering the castle's exterior contrasted beautifully with the warm, sophisticated interior, creating a sense of disparity and dynamic. This dynamic was further accentuated by the decadent underground crypt, an area with distinct ties to the past contrasting the futuristic technology inhabited above. The map's vast external areas with predominantly white and grey colour schemes provided a perfect canvas for the map's wonder weapons, each producing their own radiant visual spectacle. The map's vibrant Pack-a-Punch camos worked to further complement Der Eisendrache's primarily simple coloured background, with bright yellow, green and red standing out distinctly against the map's snow-covered walls and floors. With respect to sound design and music, Der Eisendrache conveyed a contrast to Shadows of Evil's densely populated metropolis. The map's sound effects depicted cold isolation in a forgotten castle, with musical accompaniment that ranged from chilling and somber to awesome. With Shadows of Evil having introduced the bulk of Black Ops 3's new mechanics, Der Eisendrache didn't feature many particularly original mechanics in comparison. In fact, Der Eisendrache featured mostly revamped mechanics easily identifiable from other maps, almost acting like an homage to the pioneers of older games. Der Eisendrache's signature new mechanic was the Tramfuse, a unique additional power-up that essentially gave players access to another random power-up from the spawn room. Compared with any other mechanic from Black Ops 3, the Tramfuse was about as simple as it could get. But with simplicity comes malleability, and this mechanic would evolve and become more interesting in the base mechanics of following maps. Aside from the Tramfuse, there was not much in Eisendrache that was truly new mechanically. The Dragon Heads were identical in function to the Cerberus Heads from Mob of the Dead, just as the Afterlife mode inspired the Beast mode in Shadows of Evil, yet more evidence proving how innovative and influential Mob of the Dead was and is. The Dragon Heads in Eisendrache serve to unlock the basic form of the map's wonder weapon, the Wrath of the Ancients, a transformed version of the Sparrow from Black Ops 3's multiplayer. The Wrath of the Ancients could further be upgraded into 4 individual bows for each of the 4 players, uncanny to the system established with the elemental staves in Origins. Taking more inspiration from the multiplayer was Eisendrache's specialist weapon, the Ragnarok DG4, featuring clear resemblance to the multiplayer's gravity spikes. As per regular mechanics, Eisendrache showcased the original traps and transports from old classics, as well as exciting new traps and transports exhibited by the jump pads and Death Ray. The map featured the ever-familiar Hellhounds first seen in Shinonuma, as well as a redesigned Panzer Soldat from Origins in a creative blend of old and new. Though the reputable multitude of Eisendrache's featured mechanics were designed well and suited the map rather perfectly, their shared lack of originality was indicative of a temper in mechanical innovation. The anti-gravity mechanic was first conceived in Moon, the 115 well clearly inspired from Origins, even the teleporting Pack-a-Punch mechanic was first seen in Black Ops 1 in Call of the Dead. This familiar plateau in mechanical innovation suggests a rather interesting pattern and relationship between Black Ops games, a pattern that would only become more apparent with each of Black Ops 3's DLC releases. But Eisendrache cannot be judged just yet for its mechanical ingenuity or lack thereof. The map featured one new mechanic that somewhat changed how the game mode was played, taking it in a whole new direction. Eisendrache featured the first ever dedicated Black Ops Zombies boss fight, taking the game once again to a whole new level. While previous maps such as Shadows of Evil and Origins had featured Easter egg steps akin to a sort of final battle, none of them came close to this. The boss fight in Eisendrache was arduous, extravagant, and intense, a revolutionary game changer to the Black Ops series, and the most climactic map ending Call of Duty Zombies had so far ever seen. The boss fight mechanic became a staple feature on Black Ops 3, showing off Treyarch's unparalleled creative ability and dedication to the Zombies mode. The mechanic would have a profound effect on the core Call of Duty Zombies template, with boss fights reappearing in map after map in the rest of Black Ops 3, all of Black Ops 4, and even some of Black Ops Cold War. The DLC maps on Black Ops 1 rotated through 4 main mechanics: perk machines, bosses, wonder weapons, and transports. Black Ops 3 modified and expanded on this limited pool. Each DLC rotated new bosses, wonder weapons, transports, and gobbleguns instead of perks, as well as a new signature mechanic, specialist weapon, and boss fight. Just as Black Ops 1 had reached a stage of relative comfort in terms of how the game mode had evolved, Black Ops 3 had been graced with a perfect template. The best mechanics had already been achieved, and extreme innovation was no longer necessary. With inspiring new wonder weapons, cutscenes, and an epic final boss, Eisendrache solidified Call of Duty Zombies' elevated status, and players waited in eager anticipation of Black Ops 3's next DLC. Two and a half months after Eisendrache, Black Ops 3 unveiled its second DLC, Zetsubou no Shima. When it comes to Black Ops 3's impressive lineup of Zombies maps, players are quick to identify Zetsubou no Shima as the weakest link, an outlier amongst gold standard supergiants. Zetsubou presented a rise in difficulty in terms of core Call of Duty Zombies gameplay compared to Black Ops 3's previous maps to Eisendrache and Shadows of Evil, resulting in a dissonance for the majority of the player base. The new map was additionally reportedly full of game-related glitches and bugs upon release, and though these bugs have since been rectified and ironed out, the map has earned a disreputable first impression for the dominant sect of the Zombies fanbase. But Call of Duty Zombies had seen controversy before in unpopular maps, and at least in the case of Black Ops Zombies, whether or not a map is inherently good or bad is a matter of preference, and one player's most hated map can be another's favourite. On April 19, 2016, Black Ops 3 released Zetsubou no Shima, the black sheep of Black Ops 3. Zetsubou no Shima's signature mechanic was the seed planting and respective plant watering, an altered iteration of the Eisendrache's simple tram fuse. Unlike previous similarly designed mechanics like the Origins digging and pods in Shadows of Evil, the plant watering mechanic demanded additional maintenance, wherein players were required to repeatedly water the plants each round to secure a reward, a task that proved too menial and mundane for most players to bother with. Zetsubou is also notably remembered for its bizarre twist on the ordinary power system. Players were forced to power up 2 individual sections of the map before even gaining access to the main power switch. Though this task was not overly complicated, it raised the minimum skill requirement needed to play even the basic parts of the map, turning on the power to buy perks. Such an unorthodox change to one of the game mode's earliest established mechanics would unfortunately drive away any remnants of the casual Zombies audience. In terms of wonder weapons, Black Ops 3 had so far provided artifacts of incredible power, weapons with instant damage and all-encompassing range that made it nearly impossible for players to be downed by zombies while using them. Zetsubou dialed down this approach with its more modest wonder weapon, the KT-4, inspired by the Hive specialist score streak from the multiplayer. Having gotten used to the immense power of the wonder weapons from previous maps, the KT-4 fell short of player expectations, as the weapon was not necessarily capable of killing the same amount of zombies or saving players from sticky situations with the same proficiency as the elemental bows or apotheca's servant. Black Ops 3 did well in catering to player preference, with an accommodating variety of zombie maps that presented different experiences and suited different playstyles. Generally, Zetsubou no Shima was agreed on for having features that were difficult, underwhelming, and annoying. But the best part of Call of Duty Zombies' transition and evolution into a more complicated game mode is that it no longer lived to appease the general public. The game mode now pursued a more niche audience, a passionate cult following. Simply too difficult or too unfamiliar, Zetsubou was widely rejected by the Zombies community, yet there exist those few that pity the masses, who can't recognize Zetsubou no Shima for the masterpiece that it is. Zetsubou no Shima encapsulated a gorgeously depicted visual story of mankind's ruthless abuse of nature through its dynamic, changing scenery. The spawn room and surrounding early game sectors are steeped in swamp and dominated by overgrown plant life. Entering the midsection, the map featured metal, man-made facilities and machinery savagely encroach over the lush and exotic greenery. Finally, the bunker depicts a remorseless final transition. Mother Nature is warped and mutilated through the unprincipled experimentation conducted by Division 9. This visual development beautifully accommodated Zetsubou's layout and level design without remotely compromising it with overbearing scenery. Zetsubou no Shima took advantage of a hybrid-style level design like Origins, splicing the traditional 2-split path layout with the unique 3-split composition from Shadows of Evil designated in the bunker. Inhabiting this hybrid layout was a masterful spread of miniature objectives and interactive features. The map had a noticeably symmetrical layout, yet each pathway and each area was unique both thematically and mechanically, with major features weaved seamlessly alongside smaller features throughout it. Previous layout examples such as Shadows of Evil and Eisendrache contained mirroring segments and branches that featured the same related objectives. Zetsubou no Shima avoided this repetitive style by spreading its related objectives in an asymmetrical pattern, giving these areas their own separate, distinct purpose. Zetsubou accommodated the return of celebrated mechanics from old maps, as well as an assortment of completely new mechanics, unlike its predecessor to Eisendrache. The plants were, first and foremost, Zetsubou's signature feature, and while it was a bothersome chore to some, it was a mechanical goldmine for others. Using alternate combinations of the differently coloured irradiated water would result in growing various intriguing plants, adding a new depth and much needed variety to an otherwise simple mechanic. The selection of plants ranged dramatically in function, including one that allowed players to clone themselves and respawn after death as an additional safety precaution, a mechanic that was so incredibly innovative while also staying cleverly coherent with the map's theme. Much like wall riding originally designed for the game's multiplayer, the swimming mechanic was adapted effectively into zombies in Zetsubou, adding a whole new dimension to the game's regular movement. While swimming would see some return in Black Ops 4, Zetsubou no Shima remains the only map on Black Ops 3 to take advantage of this unique mechanic. Further debuted on Zetsubou were the hazardous spores. While on the surface this mechanic was nothing more than an added inconvenience and served only to necessitate the map's unique crafted item, the gas mask, the spores carried alternative benefits when used in certain ways, such as to kill spiders or temporarily gain air underwater, once again adding depth to an otherwise basic mechanic. The trial system returned from the ever-influential Origins, completed with an additional overhaul mechanic that allowed players to electrify their shields, and thereby gain access to a whole new layer of hidden mechanics. While just as into Eisendrache there was sadly no new perk machine, Zetsubou presented another hit set of the regularly iterated upon zombies mechanics. The map's previously mentioned wonder weapon, the KT-4, was indeed less powerful than its predecessors, however the benefits of this design choice can be argued both ways. While some players keenly enjoyed the immense power of certain wonder weapons, other players found them too powerful, and were better suited to the additional challenge provided by the more modest KT-4 and Masamune. Zetsubou featured a new specialist weapon, the Skull of Nansapwe, a totally new invention bearing no resemblance to the multiplayer specialist score streaks, just like the wonder weapon and specialist weapon from Shadows of Evil. While bosses in Call of Duty Zombies typically don't carry traits beyond being big, being fast, or being grotesque, Zetsubou innovated on this simple design by giving its bosses additional capabilities. The map's thrashers could abduct and imprison downed players, adding a frightening and often comical element to the game. Furthermore, Zetsubou's more iconic spiders were mischievous in enwrapping and entangling perks and pathways with webbing, requiring players to tear them down or blow them up. Finally, Zetsubou implemented an innovative array of new modes of transport. Zetsubou no Shima was the first map to avoid outright teleportation seen in every previous map since Mob of the Dead, which is a testimony to the map's self-contained, congruent level design. Moreover, in contrast with Eisendrache and Shadows of Evil, which featured repeats of the same transportation methods, all of Zetsubou's modes of transport were entirely different from one another, bringing a sense of distinction and variety to the areas that they inhabited. Ever since the first Easter egg was conceived way back in Ascension on Black Ops 1, Call of Duty Zombies had been plagued by an unfortunate curse. As the Easter eggs in newer maps became more interesting and earned more of a focus by developers, they subsequently became more complex, so complex that most players wouldn't even bother attempting them. As utterly impressive as the boss fight into Eisendrache was, only a small fraction of the player base would exhibit the coordination and dedication required to experience it. Zetsubou no Shima innovated and overcame this massive complexity barrier, providing an unprecedented mini-boss fight and an earlier stage, in addition to the final boss fight at the end of the map's Easter egg. Presenting a dedicated boss fight at an earlier, easier-to-reach stage allowed a much larger percentage of the player base to experience it. An innovation that has sadly been overlooked in following maps, and especially in following Black Ops games, whose Easter eggs became even more increasingly complicated. Zetsubou no Shima did, as per the new standard of Call of Duty Zombies, provide improved musical accompaniment to better immerse players on their journey throughout the map. Zetsubou's soundtrack is stunning, crafted with passion and precision to properly reflect the surrounding visuals. Many of the tracks share an ambience that is entrancing. Slow, soft chimes and percussion, or delicate piano and stringed instruments adorned with beautiful, soothing vocals. Patient melodies that depict a subtle contrast, a horrifying beauty existing on this exotic island of despair. All in all, Zetsubou no Shima iterated more on the Call of Duty Zombies template than its often compared predecessor to Eisendrache, but understandably less so than Black Ops 3's flagship map, Shadows of Evil. Shadows revolutionised the core of Call of Duty Zombies with an abundance of new mechanics and changes, while Eisendrache celebrated the return of beloved features from older games, updating them with more polish and flair. Zetsubou encompassed a coalescence of mechanics old and new, completed with an exquisite assortment of additional hidden features and secrets for players to discover. Zetsubou no Shima is a masterpiece, a crowning achievement of Call of Duty Zombies innovation befitting the Black Ops 3 golden age. Brilliant mechanics, gorgeously depicted visuals, captivating music, all meticulously weaved together in a multi-layered spiderweb of a map. It is Black Ops 3's most underrated gem, boasting a multitude of experiences and features designed to excite, immerse, and enthrall. Zetsubou offered a complex, in-depth, and challenging Call of Duty Zombies experience, best suited to players that may have found the setup on Shadows of Evil and to Eisendrache too undemanding, but couldn't be bothered with far more complicated Easter eggs. In the periods of time between subsequent map releases on Black Ops 3, it was often the pleasure of players to surmise and scheme as to what was coming next. Black Ops 3 didn't shy away from giving subtle hints. Considering the story elements that had thus far taken place, players could at least assume that Black Ops 3's next DLC would be set somewhere in Russia. Some 2 weeks before the release date of the map, Treyarch produced a trailer depicting the next Zombies installment, Gorod Krovi. With certain hints gathered from within Zetsubou no Shima, and from the proud presentation of certain features delivered in the trailer, players could do more than guess at the map's premise. But one can only wonder the kind of reaction had by players who might not have known what to expect. July 12, 2016, 2 months after Zetsubou, Black Ops 3 unleashes Gorod Krovi. Since Mob of the Dead, Call of Duty Zombies had taken on a heavy fantasy inspiration. Buried towns, giant robots, aliens, magic weapons, well-regarded additions that only served to escalate the mode into a more intriguing and whimsical experience. But even this remarkable newfound trope had an eventual turning point, evolving to become more extreme, evident by how far the fantasy element was pushed in Black Ops 4. No doubt this turning point occurred in Gorod Krovi. Prior maps encapsulated congruent and coherent themes, with features that adhered to the map's overarching concept or underlying story. The opposite to such a theme could be considered chaos, but in Gorod Krovi, chaos is the theme. Dragons, giant robots with lasers, fire-breathing shields, electro droids, a marriage of mad science fiction and magic. Gorod Krovi introduced a lavish set of reiterations of the routine Black Ops 3 Zombies mechanics, as well as some entirely new mechanics, most of which were decidedly more in-depth than usual. The map's signature mechanic involved the code cylinders, used to forge the Dragon Network controller. This mechanic represented the end of the evolutionary path for the Tramfuse from to Eisendrache, becoming more complicated in Zetsubou no Shima, and then becoming more involved with Gorod Krovi. Despite being the foremost signature mechanics of their respective maps, the Tramfuse and Seed mechanics were more or less optional mechanics, whereas Gorod Krovi incorporated this feature into its core gameplay loop, as the code cylinders were required to reach the Pack-a-Punch. Gorod Krovi is more famously acclaimed for its fire-breathing occupants, the Dragons. The Dragon Breath mechanic was yet another evolution of the terrain hazard feature conceived in Shi no Numa, amounting to a blend of two terrain hazards from previous maps. A dragon would appear at seemingly random intervals similar to the giants from Origins, and coat the selected terrain in fire, damaging players with the same lethality as the fire and lava from Transit. Beyond the surface-level mechanics designed to be experienced regularly in Gorod Krovi, exists an assortment of mechanics designed to be less obvious and more complex. Black Ops 3 had featured such mechanics before in other maps, but Gorod Krovi strived in accentuating them and giving them more depth. Examples of this included the series of secret melee weapons unlocked via a time trial, as well as the Dragon Strike ability unlocked through the unique lockdown. These miniature, extra-type mechanics had appeared in Eisendrache and Zetsubou to a lesser capacity, seen in the secret wall-buy, and also hidden spider-bait ability. An additionally similarly unapparent new mechanic debuting in Gorod Krovi consisted of the Masks and Dragon Wings, unlockable by completing specific, completely undisclosed challenges. This mechanic saw a veritable, more thorough return in Black Ops 3's next and final map, thus indicating the evolution had a feasible influence over the Call of Duty Zombies template. Gorod Krovi instituted a varying collection of regular iterations which ranged from meeting the already high Black Ops 3 standard to being utterly breathtaking. For the first time since Buried, Gorod Krovi's Wonder Weapon could be obtained exclusively from the Mystery Box and could just as easily be upgraded via the Pack-a-Punch. Interestingly, this concept was consistently refeatured in later maps in Black Ops 3 and occasionally in Black Ops 4, denoting how the game mode often returned to favouring the randomness from older maps over the complex crafting methods in newer ones. The simple acquisition method for Gorod Krovi's Wonder Weapon greatly contrasted the grueling process by which to obtain the map's specialist weapon, the Gauntlet of Siegfried. Judging by how Black Ops 3's final map disappointingly did not feature its own unique specialist weapon, the Gauntlet of Siegfried represented the ultimate climax of the weapon type's evolution, at least for Black Ops 3. Taking the form of a hyper-powerful gauntlet and a baby dragon, the weapon was a modified combination of the Ripper and Purifier score streaks from the multiplayer, resulting in a weapon that was doubly innovative and doubly destructive. Call of Duty Zombies had, for a while, produced interesting transportation methods for players to use. Being bizarre, exciting, thrilling, or unique, each method provided no more than succeeding in transporting players from one area to another in an exciting, but not distracting fashion. In Gorod Krovi, however, the concept and theme for the map's main mode of transport was so important and central to its design that the whole map was basically built around it. Never before had Zombies offered an experience so grandiose as riding a dragon between burning buildings through cannon fire. While it could be argued to be no more than a glorified cutscene from a mechanical standpoint, transport methods were never designed to be particularly innovative mechanically, and in Zombies, similarly elaborate scenes such as flying the Icarus in Mob of the Dead never ceased to impress. This grandiose style of transportation would see limited return in later maps, slumbering dormant before its resplendent reprisal in Black Ops 4's Ancient Evil. Gorod Krovi lastly introduced a respectable lineup of bosses between the Manglers packing ranged firepower and the Valkyrie drones capable of spawning electrified zombies. These minor bosses, however, do nothing to distract attention away from the map's ultimate final boss fight, a two-stage ordeal where players must defeat a legitimate dragon and then the drunken, mech-wielding Ultimus Nikolai. Black Ops 3's continued investment into more complicated, awe-inspiring final boss segments would later culminate and evolve into some of the most spectacular boss fights the game mode has ever seen, later in Black Ops 4. For the better half of Black Ops 2 and most of Black Ops 3, zombies had been approached with substantial focus on atmosphere, with stylistic scenery and music. Maps had embodied predominantly slow and somber vibes, with more ambient and immersive settings configured to charm and captivate. Though Gorod Krovi was nonetheless immersive, it achieved this through totally different means. In contrast with Call of Duty Zombies' usual quieter, more chilling ambience, Gorod Krovi was fast-paced and intense, depicted by the constant tapping of drums in its war-themed soundtrack and its crumbling, fire-scorched scenery. All this in combination with its equally vigorous and unpredictable mechanics, Gorod Krovi was a heart-racing, blood-pumping experience through and through. Theme-wise, Black Ops 3's third DLC demonstrated an emerging shift from having a self-contained original style to incorporating more globally established icons. Gorod Krovi didn't simply open the gates to a more involved level of fantasy, it blasted them down. In the days of Black Ops 1 and the early days of Black Ops 2, Gorod Krovi would have looked incredibly out of place, akin to a fever-induced dream. The map's use of dragons in Call of Duty Zombies would ultimately lead it down a new evolutionary path, where the overarching themes of future maps became more generic, consisting of more commonly associated iconography such as werewolves and the Titanic. Having produced the most highly revered assembly of Call of Duty zombie maps to date, it would finally be time for Black Ops 3 to come to an end. As in established Black Ops tradition, Black Ops 3's fourth DLC would presumably be its last, and for this final map, Treyarch would patent directly to its passionate cult-following audience. With a game mode that now boasted a lengthy assortment of unique maps and an abundance of equally distinct features, players dreamed and theorized of a zombies experience that fused it all together into one crazy conglomerate, and Treyarch set out to make that dream a reality. On September 6, 2016, 2 months after Gorod Krovi, Black Ops 3 released a Zombies Hall of Fame commemorating the game mode's fascinating journey thus far. Revelations, the climax of the zombies' golden age. Due to the very essence of Revelations' premise, the map posed an indubitable stall in all areas of innovation. As a result of being the literal byproduct of other Call of Duty Zombies maps, Revelations lacked any veritable new mechanics of its own outside of some steps in the map's main Easter egg. Disregarding original mechanics, Revelations offered a modest selection of Zombies reiterations. In entirety, this list was limited to a new ritual system harkening back to the Origins generators, a new enemy type, variations of old enemies, and the Keeper Protector directly inspired by the Civil Protector from Shadows of Evil. In addition to the classic traps from some of Call of Duty Zombies' oldest maps, Revelations produced a set of usable turrets called Corruption Turrets, a mechanic first established one map prior with Gorod Krovi's mounted MG42. Revelations additionally expanded on Gorod Krovi's masks mechanic, increasing the number of masks and helmets from 3 to 8, a more respectable variety that made the mechanic more substantial. Gaining access to the Pack-a-Punch required an additional step that involved a brief timing challenge, but though this mechanic was visually impressive and technically unprecedented in the Zombies game mode, it was too simple to count towards anything remotely innovative. Anything that remained beyond these few mechanics had essentially been introduced in the exact same way or slightly differently in older maps. The jump pads mimic those from Eisendrache, the portals from Shadows of Evil. Even exiting the Great Apothecant Beast is clearly reminiscent of jettisoning from the giant robots in Origins. Regarding new weapons, Revelations offered little aside from some unusual assortments added from the multiplayer. The map focused more on celebrating fan-favourite weapons and features, incorporating the Ragnarok DG4 Specialist weapon, the Guard of Fafnir's shield, Lil Arnie's and Apothecant Servant from Shadows of Evil, and reprising the much-loved Thundergun for its third appearance since Kino de Toten and Ascension on Black Ops 1. Revelations rode heavily on the waves of nostalgia, rewarding the game mode's dedicated fanbase by recognizing Zombies' oldest and most memorable maps. Nostalgia had been a weapon used by Treyarch before, and would be used far more by all of Call of Duty. Origin's spectacular trailer back in 2013 depicted the return of the original playable characters first seen in World at War, striking an emotional chord with the Zombies audience even then. Nostalgia had been implemented with appropriate restraint throughout Black Ops 3 via the return of iconic weapons and other references, but for Revelations, nostalgia became the base concept, focusing the entire experience on reminiscing and reflecting on the good times of the past. Revelations' unhindered success indicated one thing in particular: the Zombies fanbase enjoyed seeing its favourite maps remastered. This fact would set in motion yet another distinct transition in the game mode's evolutionary path. With video game franchises that feature wide-spanning editions such as Call of Duty, remasters and remakes alike were an eventuality, and such would be the same for Black Ops Zombies, a fate sealed by the profitable Revelations, backed by the further success of Zombies Chronicles. Revelations was a grand toast to the journey that Call of Duty Zombies had thus far endured, honouring the game mode's fanatical fanbase with the acknowledgement of zombie maps past and present. Revelations didn't just tie old maps together, it tied them together well, using unique scenery to seamlessly bridge maps with totally contrasting art directions and themes, in addition to redefining them with new atmospheres and settings to capture and reimagine old classics in new ways. Regrettably, such a toast is the bulk of the experience that Revelations delivered. Through its copious celebration of scenery and mechanics from past maps, Revelations possessed little that it could call its own. This blatant lack of identity would be inherited by future maps that followed a similar direction, when the next generation of Black Ops Zombies would come to pass. Though Black Ops 3 brought some of the most inventive new mechanics to the zombies genre while additionally reprising and improving old ones, the game met a stall in the evolutionary progression of the mode. Strictly concerning major innovative changes that evolved the zombies mode at its core, aside from its debut changes presented in Shadows of Evil, Black Ops 3 did not have the same impact as other zombies editions. Drawing a comparison between the levels of innovation of Black Ops 3, Black Ops 1, and subsequently their direct predecessors helps to identify a particular trend. Being rich with revolutionary, groundbreaking zombie maps, World at War and Black Ops 2 displayed higher spikes in innovation and creativity, whereas the lull in iterative progress seen in Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 3 is indicative of an evolution-based settling point. The two initiator games, World at War and Black Ops 2, pushed the conventional boundaries and experimented to perfect the mode. This in turn resulted in quintessential blueprints for the following games to inherit, leading to a lack of major innovation where it no longer seemed necessary. In addition to its most impressive lineup of original maps, Black Ops 3 presented an accessory DLC that further cemented it as one of the all-time greatest Call of Duty Zombies games. On the 16th of May 2017, a whole 8 months after Revelations, Treyarch released a tribute to the game mode's success and prolific history, Zombies Chronicles. The same way Black Ops 1 had done 6 years before, Black Ops 3 remastered Call of Duty Zombies' oldest maps from World at War, as well as some maps from Black Ops 1 and the ever-prodigious Origins from Black Ops 2. Alongside a final selection of new gobblegums, some of which arguably broke the game, the Chronicles maps were Treyarch's true final send-off for Black Ops 3, a remaster DLC symbolic of the shared journey between Call of Duty Zombies' passionate developers and its ever-devoted, fanatical audience. While Black Ops 3 was heralded as the golden age of the Call of Duty Zombies franchise, it was by no means the end. After another year of waiting since Black Ops 3 Zombies Chronicles, a teaser depicting Black Ops 4 was finally released, and the game was set to come out later that year, in October 2018. Another proper trailer following the game's teaser trailer promised the best and most dedicated Zombies experience yet, with an unprecedented 3 colossal maps playable on day 1. With the overall success of Black Ops 3 Zombies combined with the incredible experience suggested by this new trailer, anticipation for Black Ops 4 was impossible to quell.